In the early hours of August 8, 1963, a seemingly ordinary Royal Mail train made its usual journey from Glasgow to London. Deep within its carriages, a fortune in used banknotes lay secured, destined for various banks across the capital. Unbeknownst to the dedicated postal workers sorting letters and parcels, this particular journey was about to become immortalized in criminal history, marking the prelude to an event that would shock an entire nation and redefine the scale of organized crime. The quiet hum of the diesel engine carried it towards its fateful encounter. The Glasgow-London mail train, specifically the high-value package, HVP, carriage, was a rolling vault. It routinely carried immense sums of cash, transferred between Scottish and English banks. On this particular night, the total haul was staggering, over £2.6 million in used banknotes, a sum equivalent to more than £50 million in today's money. This colossal amount was largely forgotten, deemed too insignificant to warrant special security measures beyond the standard Royal Mail protocols. This oversight would prove to be one of the most critical vulnerabilities exploited by the cunning criminals. The year 1963 was a pivotal moment for Britain. The swinging 60s were just beginning to unfurl, bringing with them a sense of optimism and changing social norms. However, beneath the surface, class divides remained stark, and a certain deference to authority still held sway. The notion of a large-scale, audacious robbery was almost unimaginable, particularly against an institution as venerable as the Royal Mail. This backdrop of relative innocence and stability made the crime all the more shocking when it inevitably occurred, shattering public perceptions of safety. The idea for such a monumental heist did not spontaneously appear. It was the brainchild of a seasoned criminal, Bruce Reynolds, a man known for his meticulous planning and ambition. Reynolds had heard whispers about the lucrative mail train and, with a network of underworld contacts, began to piece together the intelligence required for such an operation. His vision was audacious: to intercept the train not with brute force, but with cunning and precision, exploiting the very routine that made it so reliable. This was no ordinary smash and grab. Reynolds knew that an operation of this magnitude required a diverse team, each with specific skills. He brought together a formidable group of individuals, many of whom were well-known figures in London's criminal underworld. This included Buster Edwards, a safecracker, Charlie Wilson, known as the Silent Man, and the charismatic Ronnie Biggs. Each member was chosen for their expertise, their nerve, and their ability to keep a secret. The gang was a blend of specialists, united by the promise of an unprecedented payday and a shared hunger for audacious crime. The gang identified a critical vulnerability in the train's route, Sears Crossing in Buckinghamshire. This isolated stretch of track, far from any towns or police stations, offered the perfect opportunity for an interception. It was here that the team would execute their bold plan, manipulating the railway signals to force the train to stop. The remoteness of the location was paramount, ensuring maximum time for the robbery without immediate detection, a crucial element in their meticulously crafted strategy. Every detail of the location was scouted and analyzed. The planning was exhaustive, spanning several months. Reynolds and his team conducted extensive reconnaissance of the railway line, studying train schedules, signal operations, and local police patrols. They even observed the movements of the postal workers. This diligent groundwork ensured they understood every nuance of their target, from the precise timing of the train's arrival to the layout of the carriages. Their preparation bordered on obsession, a testament to the scale of the prize they sought and the risks they were willing to take. No stone was left unturned. The most ingenious part of their plan involved manipulating the railway signals. Rather than physically stopping the train, they intended to change the signals from green to red, forcing the driver to halt. One of the gang members, a former railwayman, understood the system implicitly. This subtle but effective method minimized direct confrontation and appeared, to any casual observer, as a legitimate stop. It was a clever exploitation of everyday railway procedures, turning routine into an opportunity for crime. The deception was key to their initial success. Crucial to their escape was Leatherslade Farm, a remote property purchased specifically for the robbery. Located just 25 miles from the crime scene, it was chosen for its isolation and its ability to house the entire gang and the enormous loot without drawing suspicion. This farm would serve as their temporary sanctuary, a place to divide the spoils and lie low before dispersing. The acquisition of the farm was a clear indication of the foresight and long-term planning that underpinned the entire operation, moving beyond the mere act of theft. As the night of August 7th transitioned into the early hours of August 8th, the gang put their plan into motion. Tensions were high, but years of criminal experience had prepared them for this moment. They drove to Sears Crossing, their vehicles laden with tools and anticipation. The air was thick with the silent understanding that their lives were about to change, for better or worse. The ordinary world slept, oblivious to the extraordinary events unfolding on a quiet stretch of railway, poised to become a turning point. At 3:03 a.m., the Glasgow-London mail train approached Sears Crossing. As planned, the signals had been tampered with. The green signal for the main line was obscured, and a red signal was displayed instead. Driver Jack Mills, an experienced railwayman, dutifully brought the train to a halt, as any professional would. He was merely doing his job, unaware that this routine stop was the very trap set for him. The train's brakes hissed, the colossal machine finally yielding to the artificial command. The silence that followed was ominous. As the train stood motionless, gang members swiftly boarded the locomotive. They overpowered Jack Mills and his co-driver, David Whitby, using minimal force but sufficient intimidation. Mills was struck on the head with a blunt instrument, a regrettable act that would have lasting consequences for his health. The violence, though limited, was a stark reminder of the gravity of the situation. The vital personnel were neutralized, ensuring no alarm could be raised from the engine, a critical step in maintaining control of the enormous rolling stock. The gang's focus quickly shifted to the high-value package carriage, the post office coach. This particular coach was designed for security, with reinforced doors and an interior packed with mailbags. Accessing it required not just brute strength, but a precise understanding of its layout. The postal workers inside, accustomed to the rhythmic rocking of the train, were completely unaware of the drama unfolding just a few carriages away, sorting letters in blissful ignorance, until the gang made their presence known, turning their world upside down. With the engine secured, the next challenge was to uncouple the HVP carriage from the rest of the train. This required specialist knowledge, as the gang needed to detach the specific coach containing the cash without disrupting the entire train. Under the guidance of their railway insider, they managed to separate the valuable coaches, isolating their prize. The remaining carriages, with their unsuspecting postal workers, were left behind, creating a perfect window for the heist. Precision and speed were of the essence, a testament to their planning. The separated engine and the two valuable carriages were then driven a short distance down the track to Bridego Bridge. This new location offered even greater seclusion, shielding their activities from any potential prying eyes. The change of location was a calculated move, further isolating the scene of the robbery and giving the gang more time and privacy to execute the extraction of the money. The engine, no longer a symbol of routine, was now a tool in a massive criminal enterprise, its journey far from over. Inside the post office coach, the gang encountered fierce resistance from the mailbags themselves. Each bag, containing parcels and letters, had to be moved or opened to locate the specific bags containing the banknotes. This was not a simple task. The bags were heavy and numerous, requiring significant physical effort. Time was ticking, and the adrenaline-fueled chaos within the confined space was immense. The robbers were literally swimming through a sea of mail, searching for their golden treasure, each minute adding to the risk of discovery. To expedite the transfer of the money, the gang formed a human chain, passing the heavy mailbags, specifically identified as containing the banknotes, out of the train and into waiting vehicles. This synchronized effort, practiced in their minds countless times, was crucial for efficiency. Each bag represented a substantial portion of the loot, and the speed at which they were transferred was paramount. It was a testament to their coordination and the urgency of their task. The darkness of the early morning cloaked their furious activity. With the substantial loot secured, the gang vanished into the night. Their escape route led directly to Leatherslade Farm, their prearranged hideout. The journey was tense, filled with the relief of a successful heist and the lingering fear of immediate detection. The getaway vehicles sped through the quiet country lanes, their precious cargo bouncing with every bump. The initial phase of the plan was complete, but the most dangerous part, evading capture, had only just begun. The farm awaited, a temporary haven from the impending storm. Hours later, the abandoned mail train was discovered. The scene was one of disarray, confirming the worst fears: a major robbery had occurred. The police were immediately alerted, and the scale of the crime quickly became apparent. The sheer audacity and professionalism of the heist sent shockwaves through the force and the wider public. It was unprecedented. Britain woke up to headlines describing an almost unbelievable crime, a challenge to the very fabric of law and order that seemed to characterize the era. The manhunt was about to begin. Scotland Yard swiftly launched an immense investigation, led by Detective Chief Superintendent Tommy Butler, a man renowned for his relentless pursuit of criminals. This was no ordinary case, it was a matter of national importance, demanding the full resources of the British police force. Butler and his team faced immense pressure to apprehend the culprits and recover the colossal sum of money. The reputation of British law enforcement hung in the balance, a monumental task laid before them, with the world watching intently for their response. The police, acting on crucial intelligence, converged on Leatherslade Farm. What they found was a treasure trove of evidence. The gang, in their haste to disperse, had left behind numerous fingerprints, used cooking utensils, and even a monopoly board that had been played with using the stolen banknotes. These seemingly innocuous items would prove to be their undoing, providing the forensic clues necessary to identify and connect the various members of the audacious criminal enterprise. The farm, intended as a safe haven, became a forensic goldmine for the authorities. Through meticulous forensic work and an extensive network of informants, the police began to identify the members of the Great Train Robbery gang. Fingerprints, witness statements, and the criminal records of known associates slowly pieced together the puzzle. The names started to emerge: Bruce Reynolds, Buster Edwards, Charlie Wilson, and, of course, Ronnie Biggs. The net was tightening around them, even as some of the robbers believed they had successfully vanished. The long arm of the law was extending, reaching into the shadows to bring them to justice. Within days and weeks of the robbery, the first arrests were made. Some gang members, struggling with the sudden influx of wealth or failing to lie low, were relatively easy to trace. Others were caught through diligent police work, matching fingerprints from Leatherslade Farm to their records. The initial captures provided vital leads, allowing Tommy Butler's team to unravel more of the conspiracy. While some scattered, the initial dragnet was effective, bringing many of the culprits to justice swiftly. The shockwaves of the crime were now being matched by the swift response of the authorities. The trials of the Great Train Robbers began in early 1964 and quickly became a media sensation. The public was captivated by the sheer audacity of the crime and the larger-than-life characters involved. The courtroom drama unfolded with intense scrutiny, as prosecutors meticulously presented the overwhelming evidence gathered from Leatherslade Farm and witness testimonies. The public interest was immense, transforming the legal proceedings into a spectacle, a real-life crime thriller playing out on the national stage, captivating audiences across the UK. In April 1964, the verdicts were delivered. Most of the convicted robbers received exceptionally harsh sentences, reflecting the outrage and perceived threat to society. Judge Edmund Davies handed down sentences of 30 years in prison for the main perpetrators, a term intended to deter future large-scale criminal endeavors. The severity of the sentences underscored the state's resolve against such audacious crime, sending a clear message that such a challenge to authority would not be tolerated, and justice would be delivered with an iron fist, leaving no doubt. However, the story was far from over. In July 1965, just 15 months into his 30-year sentence, Ronnie Biggs made a daring escape from Wandsworth Prison. Using a rope ladder and a getaway furniture van, he slipped past guards in a meticulously planned breakout. His escape ignited a nationwide manhunt and cemented his status as a folk devil, or hero, depending on one's perspective. Biggs' flight from justice would become as famous, if not more so, than his original involvement in the robbery, turning him into a global fugitive. Biggs' escape launched him into a decades-long international odyssey. He underwent plastic surgery to alter his appearance and traveled through various countries, including France, Australia, and eventually Brazil. His life on the run was a constant game of cat and mouse with the authorities, particularly Scotland Yard's Tommy Butler, who remained determined to bring him back. Biggs' story became a modern legend, a symbol of defiance against the establishment, fueling countless newspaper articles, books, and even songs, making him arguably the most famous of the robbers. Ronnie Biggs wasn't the only one to escape. Charlie Wilson, the silent man, also made a spectacular breakout from Winson Green Prison in Birmingham just 4 months after Biggs' escape. A sophisticated operation involving multiple accomplices saw him being sprung from prison in a van. He too fled abroad, initially to Canada and later to France, where he lived under a false identity for several years. Wilson's escape further embarrassed the British authorities and highlighted the resilience and resources of the criminal underworld. The pursuit continued across continents. Detective Chief Superintendent Tommy Butler became almost as famous as the robbers themselves for his relentless pursuit. He dedicated years of his life to tracking down every last member of the gang, often traveling internationally to follow leads. Butler's unwavering determination was a testament to the police's commitment to justice, even in the face of embarrassing escapes and public ridicule. His saga became intertwined with the robbers, a constant cat-and-mouse game played out on a global stage, ensuring the Great Train Robbery never truly faded from the headlines. After 4 years on the run, Charlie Wilson was finally apprehended in Rigaud, Quebec, Canada, in 1968. He had been living a seemingly quiet life under the name Ronald Black, but an informant's tip led authorities to his doorstep. His recapture was a significant victory for Scotland Yard and a testament to Butler's unwavering resolve. Wilson was extradited back to the UK to complete his sentence, marking the end of one chapter in the ongoing saga of the Great Train Robbery fugitives, and a clear message that escaping justice was only ever temporary. Bruce Reynolds, the architect of the robbery, eventually returned to England in 1968, where he was finally apprehended. He was sentenced to 25 years in prison. Reynolds spent much of his later life reflecting on the crime, writing books, and participating in documentaries. Unlike Biggs, Reynolds expressed remorse for the impact on Jack Mills and acknowledged the heavy price paid. His story offers a more nuanced perspective on the life of a criminal mastermind, revealing the long-term consequences of a fleeting moment of infamy and illicit gain. Despite the capture of most of the gang, a significant portion of the £2.6 million stolen money was never recovered. Estimates suggest that well over half of the loot simply vanished into the criminal underworld or was quickly spent by the robbers before their capture. This unrecovered fortune added another layer of mystique to the Great Train Robbery, fueling speculation for decades about hidden caches and the true extent of the gang's success. The money, in a sense, became a phantom, a lingering ghost of the audacious crime, forever out of reach. The train driver, Jack Mills, never fully recovered from the head injury he sustained during the robbery. He suffered from severe headaches, balance problems, and psychological trauma. His promising career was cut short, and he lived out his remaining years with the physical and mental scars of that night. Mills passed away in 1970, just 7 years after the robbery, a tragically early death that many directly attributed to the assault. His story serves as a poignant reminder of the true human cost of even non-violent crimes. Co-driver David Whitby also endured lasting trauma from the robbery. Though he did not suffer the same physical injuries as Mills, the psychological impact was profound. He struggled with the aftermath for years, bearing witness to the violence and the terrifying experience of being at the mercy of the robbers. Whitby's life, like Mills, was irrevocably altered by that night, forcing him into an early retirement from the railways. His experience highlights the often overlooked victims of high-profile crimes, whose scars run deeper than the headlines suggest. For over 3 decades, Ronnie Biggs lived openly in Brazil, a country with no extradition treaty for common criminals to the UK at the time. He capitalized on his notoriety, selling interviews and souvenirs, even recording a song with the Sex Pistols. Despite attempts by British authorities to extradite him, Biggs remained out of reach, often aided by local legal loopholes and public sympathy. His life in Brazil became a strange blend of celebrity and fugitive, a continuous provocation to Scotland Yard and a source of fascination for the public. Despite numerous setbacks, the British authorities never gave up on their quest to bring Ronnie Biggs to justice. Task forces were periodically formed, and countless resources were expended in tracking his movements and exploiting any legal avenues for extradition. While Tommy Butler had retired, the institutional memory and determination of Scotland Yard persisted. Biggs' continued freedom was a point of national frustration, a constant reminder of the unfinished business of the Great Train Robbery, a stain on the record of British justice that many yearned to erase. In 2001, after 36 years on the run, a frail and ailing Ronnie Biggs voluntarily returned to the UK. He sought medical treatment unavailable in Brazil and expressed a desire to walk into a pub as an Englishman one last time. Despite his ill health, he was immediately arrested upon arrival and sent back to prison to serve the remainder of his sentence. His homecoming marked the symbolic end of a long and infamous chapter, bringing a degree of closure to the legal saga, though not without public debate over his sentence. Many of the other robbers, after serving their sentences, attempted to reintegrate into society, often finding it difficult. Some struggled with poverty, others with the stigma of their past. Bruce Reynolds, after release, wrote a successful memoir. Buster Edwards became a florist. Their lives post-prison were diverse, but all were indelibly marked by their involvement in the 1963 heist. The allure of the glamorous criminal life often gave way to the harsh realities of a return to normal, a normal that was often difficult to attain or sustain. The Great Train Robbery continues to fascinate the public, inspiring countless books, films, and documentaries. Its enduring appeal lies in the audacious nature of the crime, the colorful characters involved, and the subsequent manhunt and escapes. It represents a watershed moment in British criminal history, challenging perceptions of law and order and creating a mythology around its perpetrators. The story is a complex tapestry of crime, celebrity, and justice, continually re-evaluated and retold by new generations, maintaining its grip on popular imagination. One undeniable legacy of the Great Train Robbery was a significant overhaul in security protocols for valuable goods transport in the UK. The vulnerabilities exposed by the heist led to tighter procedures, enhanced surveillance, and improved protection for cash transfers, particularly within the railway system. The era of the easy large-scale robbery, especially against public institutions, was effectively brought to a close. The Royal Mail and other financial institutions learned a harsh but necessary lesson, adapting their methods to prevent any recurrence of such a massive loss. Over the decades, a certain mythology grew around the Great Train Robbery, portraying the perpetrators as daring, even romantic, figures. However, the reality was far grimmer for many involved, particularly the victims like Jack Mills and David Whitby. The dream of immense wealth often turned into long prison sentences, lives on the run, and lasting personal struggles. The romanticized image often overshadows the brutal facts and the profound human cost, a testament to how history can be shaped by narratives, sometimes distorting the truth of events. The role of informants in solving the Great Train Robbery cannot be overstated. From initial tips about the gang's whereabouts to details leading to the capture of fugitives like Charlie Wilson, the flow of intelligence from the criminal underworld was crucial. This reliance on insiders highlights the complex relationship between police and criminals, where trust and betrayal often dictated the course of investigations. Without these shadowy figures, much of the truth and justice in the case might have remained elusive, buried beneath layers of secrecy and loyalty. The media often portrayed the Great Train robbers as gentlemen criminals, particularly given the relatively low level of direct violence compared to the immense sum stolen. Yet, the assault on Jack Mills contradicted this image, and the psychological terror inflicted on the train crew was undeniable. The debate over their gentlemanly status reflects a societal fascination with crime that attempts to categorize and, at times, soften the harsh edges of illegal acts. The reality was a calculated, high-risk endeavor, far from any notion of polite criminality. The Great Train Robbery profoundly impacted British law enforcement. It tested the capabilities of Scotland Yard, pushing them to develop new forensic techniques and international cooperation strategies. The relentless pursuit of the fugitives, even decades later, set a precedent for unwavering determination in major cases. It became a benchmark for police work, a case study in large-scale criminal investigation that shaped future generations of detectives. The robbery, while a criminal success, ultimately strengthened the resolve and sophistication of the police force. In many ways, the Great Train Robbery marked the end of an era for British crime. The scale and audacity of the heist, combined with the subsequent hardening of security and policing tactics, made such a big score virtually impossible in the same way again. It forced criminals to adapt, moving towards less visible, more technologically advanced forms of theft. The days of physically stopping a train and making off with millions in cash by hand were largely over, closed by the very success and notoriety of this one monumental crime. Buster Edwards, one of the more flamboyant members of the gang, initially escaped to Mexico, enjoying a life of luxury for a few years. However, the pressure of being a fugitive and the diminishing funds eventually led him to return to the UK in 1966, where he surrendered to authorities. He served 9 years in prison. Later, he gained a certain public affection, even becoming the subject of a film. But his life ended tragically in 1994, a poignant reminder of the personal cost of the choices made decades earlier. Beyond the most famous names, many other individuals were involved in the Great Train Robbery, each playing a critical role. Some, like Ronnie Welsh, were also caught and served long sentences. Others were peripheral figures, providing logistical support or intelligence. Their fates varied, but all faced the consequences of their involvement, whether through imprisonment, financial ruin, or lives spent looking over their shoulders. The narrative often focuses on a few, but the entire network contributed to the crime's execution and its complex aftermath, a true ensemble of criminality. Beyond Bruce Reynolds, there was another key figure, an individual known only as the Ulsterman, a former post office worker and expert on the mail train's operations. This man, whose true identity remains debated, provided crucial inside information that made the robbery possible. He was the vital link between the criminal underworld and the operational details of the Royal Mail. He was never caught or publicly identified, adding to the layers of mystery surrounding the heist. His role highlights the indispensable value of inside intelligence in such elaborate schemes. While much of the money was never recovered, the Great Train Robbery still inflicted a significant blow to the public purse. The cost of the massive police investigation, the subsequent trials, and the decades-long pursuit of fugitives ran into millions of pounds. This financial burden, coupled with the security upgrades implemented, meant that the total economic impact of the robbery far exceeded the initial sum stolen. It was a costly lesson for the nation, highlighting that crime's reach extends far beyond the immediate loss, draining public resources. From the moment it happened, the Great Train Robbery gripped the public imagination. It inspired numerous songs, books, and films, cementing its place in popular culture. The tale of daring criminals, a massive heist, and thrilling escapes resonated deeply with an audience hungry for real-life drama. This constant retelling of the story, often with a romanticized slant, ensured that the event and its key players remained household names, transforming a brutal act of crime into a legendary saga, endlessly debated and consumed by the public. The Great Train Robbery presented a moral dilemma for many. Was it truly a victimless crime, given the insurance money narrative? Or was it a brutal act that caused lasting trauma and economic damage? The narrative of taking from banks rather than individuals often softened public perception, despite the assault on Jack Mills and the subsequent suffering. This moral ambiguity has been a recurring theme in discussions of the robbery, reflecting differing societal views on criminality and justice, making it more than just a simple tale of good versus evil. As decades passed, the raw emotions surrounding the Great Train Robbery began to fade, replaced by a more historical, almost nostalgic, view. The surviving members of the gang grew old, some passed away, and the vivid details of the initial event blurred into the broader tapestry of history. Yet, the story continues to resonate, not just as a historical curiosity, but as a cautionary tale about ambition, greed, and the long arm of the law. Time transforms events, but their lessons and legacies often remain, shaping our understanding of the past. It is crucial to remember that behind the headlines and the mythology, the Great Train Robbery had a profound human cost. Jack Mills and David Whitby bore the physical and psychological scars for the rest of their lives. Families were impacted, careers destroyed, and a sense of public safety shaken. While some robbers might have achieved fleeting fame, the true price of their actions was paid not just in prison sentences, but in the suffering of others. This is the often forgotten side of the story, a stark reminder that crimes always have victims. The media played an undeniable role in shaping the public perception of the Great Train Robbery. Sensational headlines, dramatic narratives, and often romanticized portrayals of the robbers contributed to their iconic status. Newspapers and television channels followed every twist and turn, turning the heist into a national obsession. This intense media coverage not only informed but also influenced public opinion, blurring the lines between news and entertainment, a dynamic that continues to define high-profile criminal cases even today, amplifying their impact. Leatherslade Farm, initially a discreet hideout, earned an enduring infamy, becoming almost as well known as the robbery itself. The site where the gang divided their loot and unwittingly left behind crucial evidence cemented its place in criminal law. Its isolation, its role as both a sanctuary and a trap, adds a layer of eerie significance to the location. Even today, the mention of Leatherslade Farm immediately conjures images of the heist, a physical anchor for a pivotal moment in criminal history, forever tied to the audacious plot. The existence of an inside man who provided the crucial intelligence about the mail train has been a persistent debate. While the Ulsterman is widely believed to have played this role, his true identity has never been definitively confirmed, adding to the mystery. This figure, often overlooked in the narrative, was arguably the most critical component of the heist's success. Without detailed knowledge of the train's cargo and security, the elaborate plan would likely have failed. The inside man remains a shadowy, yet pivotal, character in the Great Train Robbery saga. Public opinion regarding the Great Train Robbers was, and remains, sharply divided. Some saw them as folk heroes, anti-establishment figures who dared to challenge the system. Others viewed them as common criminals who inflicted real harm and deserved their harsh sentences. This duality reflects deeper societal attitudes towards authority, wealth, and justice. The ongoing debate ensures the robber's legacy is complex, oscillating between admiration and condemnation, a mirror reflecting the varied perspectives within society on the nature of crime and its perpetrators. The painstaking forensic investigation at Leatherslade Farm was a pivotal moment for British policing, predating the widespread use of advanced DNA analysis. The meticulous collection and analysis of fingerprints, combined with other trace evidence, showcased the power of forensic science in solving major crimes. It highlighted the need for careful crime scene preservation and innovative investigative techniques, laying groundwork for future advancements. The Great Train Robbery thus inadvertently contributed to a quiet revolution in forensic policing, leaving an unexpected legacy in scientific detection. For many, the Great Train Robbery represented the ultimate score, promising a life of luxury and freedom. This lure of the good life undoubtedly motivated the gang, but as history shows, it was a fleeting illusion. The reality for most was years behind bars, constant paranoia, and the struggle to reintegrate. The dream of escaping into an idyllic existence was shattered by the relentless pursuit of justice, demonstrating that the rewards of such audacious crime are often outweighed by the severe, inescapable consequences that follow for decades. While the robbers and detectives often dominate the narrative, it's important to acknowledge the unsung heroes of the story, the ordinary postal workers and railway staff who found themselves caught in an extraordinary and terrifying situation. Their courage under duress, and their subsequent cooperation with the police, were instrumental in the investigation. Their daily routines were irrevocably broken by the actions of a few, and their resilience in the face of such trauma deserves recognition, reminding us of the ordinary people caught in history's grasp. The pursuit of the Great Train Robbers, particularly Biggs and Wilson, transformed the manhunt into a truly global operation. Detectives traveled across continents, coordinating with international police forces to track down the fugitives. This global reach was unprecedented for British law enforcement at the time, establishing new precedents for cross-border cooperation in major criminal cases. It demonstrated that even in an era before instant digital communication, the long arm of the law could extend across oceans, patiently waiting to reclaim its quarry. Beyond the physical injuries and financial losses, the Great Train Robbery left deep psychological scars on all involved, from the victims to the perpetrators. The constant fear of capture for the fugitives, the trauma for the train crew, and the mental burden for the detectives, all speak to the profound psychological impact of such a high-stakes event. These unseen wounds often linger far longer than any physical mark, shaping lives and relationships for decades, a silent testament to the enduring power of extreme experiences on the human mind. The Great Train Robbery stands as a turning point in British criminal history. It shattered the illusion of a more innocent time, ushering in an era of greater security awareness and more sophisticated criminal tactics. It was a wake-up call, forcing society and its institutions to confront the reality of organized crime on a grand scale. The reverberations of that August morning echoed through the decades, shaping policing, public perception, and even popular culture, ensuring the event's place as a defining moment in the nation's post-war narrative. The legacy of the Great Train Robbery is multifaceted. It's a story of audacious crime, meticulous planning, and relentless pursuit. It's a tale of ordinary men becoming infamous figures, and the tragic cost borne by their victims. It left an indelible mark on British policing and security, while captivating generations through its dramatic narrative. Above all, it remains a powerful reminder of a moment when a handful of individuals challenged the might of the state and captured the imagination of a nation, for better or worse, etching itself into history. Even today, decades after the event, some questions surrounding the Great Train Robbery remain unanswered. The full identity of the Ulsterman, the exact whereabouts of all the unrecovered money, and the precise roles of some peripheral figures continue to fuel speculation and debate. These lingering mysteries only add to the allure and complexity of the story, ensuring its continued relevance and ability to captivate new audiences. The enduring enigma guarantees that the Great Train Robbery will continue to be a subject of fascination for years to come. The Great Train Robbery was more than just a heist, it was a cultural phenomenon that reflected and shaped its time. It showcased the daring ambition of criminals, the dedication of law enforcement, and the complex reactions of a society grappling with changing values. While the glamour of the gentleman robbers might persist in some corners, the true narrative is one of profound consequences and lasting scars. It serves as a powerful reminder that even the most audacious crimes leave an indelible mark, not just on history, but on the lives of many. Let's put some key figures into perspective. The stolen sum, £2.6 million, was an astronomical amount for 1963. The sentences handed down to the core gang members averaged 25 to 30 years, reflecting the severity of the crime. The number of gang members actively involved was around 15, a significant criminal enterprise. And perhaps most tellingly, almost 60 years later, a large portion of the money remains unrecovered, making it one of the most successful, albeit infamous, unrecovered heists in British history. These numbers paint a vivid picture of the scale. The journey from Bridego Bridge to Leatherslade Farm was meticulously planned for efficiency and secrecy. The gang used 2 Land Rovers and a 3-ton lorry to transport the 120 mailbags filled with cash. The relatively short distance, approximately 25 miles, was covered quickly in the pre-dawn darkness, minimizing the risk of encountering other vehicles or witnesses. The choice of robust, off-road capable vehicles underscored their foresight in anticipating the rural terrain and the heavy load they would be carrying. Every detail, down to the transport, was carefully considered. One of the most enduring and ironic details of the Leatherslade Farm discovery was the monopoly board found. The robbers, perhaps in a moment of hubris or sheer exhaustion, had used real £5 notes from their illicit haul to play the board game. This seemingly trivial detail proved to be an invaluable piece of evidence for the police, as the fingerprints left on the board were a direct link to the perpetrators. It highlighted the carelessness that often follows audacious crime, undermining meticulous planning with a simple, human error that exposed them. A critical piece of evidence that led to early arrests was a dentist who recognized one of the robbers. Bruce Reynolds and his wife, Frances, had sought dental treatment shortly after the robbery, paying in cash. The dentist, suspicious of their sudden wealth and secretive nature, contacted the police after the robbery hit the news. This seemingly minor interaction proved to be a vital break for the investigation, demonstrating how seemingly small details can unravel complex criminal conspiracies. Vigilant citizens can play a crucial role, often unknowingly. Jack Mill's physical and mental deterioration after the robbery was profound and heartbreaking. He suffered from chronic headaches, severe depression, and insomnia, becoming withdrawn and unable to continue his beloved railway career. The trauma of the assault and the subsequent media attention took an immense toll. His wife, Agnes, tirelessly campaigned for compensation for her husband, advocating for the recognition of his suffering as a direct consequence of the crime. Mill's story is a stark testament to the often hidden, long-term impact on victims, far beyond the initial headlines. After securing the loot, the gang's initial plan was to lay low at Leatherslade Farm for a few days before dispersing. However, fearing detection after the stolen train was found, they accelerated their plans. Within 48 hours of the robbery, most of the gang had abandoned the farm, leaving behind the damning evidence in their haste. This hurried departure, a deviation from their meticulous planning, ultimately provided the police with the crucial leads they needed, turning their intended safe haven into a forensic trap and sealing their fate. The Great Train Robbery also highlighted the intricate brotherhood or network within the London underworld. Many of the gang members knew each other from previous associations, sharing a code of silence and loyalty that made them difficult to infiltrate. This criminal fraternity, while ultimately breached by police informants, was a formidable force. It allowed for the assembly of a diverse skill set and the trust required for an operation of this scale, emphasizing the tight-knit nature of organized crime in 1960s Britain. The sheer volume of stolen banknotes, many of which were traceable, necessitated a sophisticated money laundering operation. While specific details remain murky, it's understood that various figures in the underworld were tasked with washing the cash, transforming it into untraceable assets. This intricate process of converting illicit gains into legitimate funds was crucial for the robbers to truly benefit from their audacious heist, and it involved a network extending far beyond the immediate gang members. The unrecovered money speaks to some success in this shadowy endeavor. Over time, the physical footprints of the Great Train Robbery have largely faded. Sears Crossing and Bridego Bridge are still there, but the old signal boxes are gone, replaced by modern railway infrastructure. Leatherslade Farm stands, but is now a private residence, far removed from its infamous past. The tangible sites of the crime have evolved, yet their historical significance remains. It's a powerful reminder of how landscapes change, but the stories they hold endure, continuing to capture the imagination, even as the physical traces diminish.